Amen. So, once again, good evening, everybody, and just welcome those that are joining us via the live stream. And I just encourage you, if you have a question, to please do so on the channel. Our title for tonight's lesson is words for a new generation, and I was thinking about that earlier, and just looking at like the first question, and what I don't want to do is I don't want to have like a time set on. I mean, we could spend the whole night on question number one, and just as long as it takes, because I think it's not that any one we've done before isn't important, but I just think there's a lot in this lesson, and just kind of want to give everybody a chance to share and not really rush anything that we're doing. Amen. So, title again is Words for a New Generation, and the first question says the Book of Deuteronomy is essentially Moses' last written words to a new generation. And then the question is, if God were to ask you to take pen and paper and speak to this current generation, what would you want them to know? Take as much time as you want to. Make as long an answer as you want to. But because it could be a lot there.
I just wrote a couple points, no particular order, but I would basically tell them to go back to the basic laws from God. Stop leaning on your own understanding. Stop changing laws for the people. Stick to what God said, not man, and make the world great.
Amen.
I wrote exactly in order. I just would say that although the times may seem to be out of control or getting worse and worse by the minute, that they shouldn't lose hope, because it's all been foretold through Scripture that it's going to be like this, so it's not a surprise. 2 Timothy chapter 3, kind of just read the whole thing. But that the good news is that we can trust that the Lord is neither unaware of the situation and he's not surprised by anything, but that on the contrary, he knows it all and is surprised by nothing. And we can be encouraged that as believers, that the Lord's return is what we can look forward to. And I put in soon. And for those who don't know him, that their only hope is to receive his free gift of salvation.
I know it may be a little bit different because like I don't even remember what they call our generation, but like I think sometimes people can look at it like, well, like our generation speaking, okay, well, yeah, they just, they think, but I guess I'm like really curious, like, what would you speak to your own generation? Because you're amongst it. I'm saying like I'm not that we don't see it firsthand, but it's just, sometimes a message can be received differently depending on who it's coming from. So I'm just kind of curious, like, what would you say to your millennials?
Actually, I'm not into particulars because I'm not a millennial.
Millennial generation.
What I put down was I just kind of jotted down some just like different thoughts. I know that's how you remember, but first thing I wrote down was definition, and it just kind of like you're not. It says, what would you want them to know? It's like you're not defined by your greatest or your worst moments. You're not defined by anybody else. You're not defined by what you say about yourself. Your definition is something what God said about you. I had a couple of scriptures, but the one I was kind of like, I heard them over here too. It kind of just triggered it. It's 1 Timothy 4:12, where he talks about don't even look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Then verse 13 says, until I come, devote yourselves to the public reading of Scripture, to preaching and to teaching. And then the next word I had was, I just put individual. I think that's something that my generation and the following generation are missing, is like, nobody is like, or a lot of people are lacking like being an individual. Like they always want to be tied to this group or tied to that group. And it's like a lot of people, I think, lack their own not beliefs, but it's like, oh, I agree with that because that's what this group agrees with, or that's what the people I hang with agree with. That's what they do. So I would say just don't be afraid to be an individual. Be who God called you to be, and do not change who you are for anyone else. And not put who cares, because I think a lot of times, like, that's why people don't share their opinion if they think it's not the popular one, or they think they're gonna get ridiculed. But it's like, at the end of the day, who cares? You know, a billion. You know, the person with the most power in this country is hated by millions of people, and then he doesn't care about what people say about him. Which, like him or not, you have to. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't care about. He's not swayed by other people's opinions because people talk bad about him or disagree with what he says. He sticks to what he does, and I think more people need to have that mentality, not the things that he says, but what we're sharing, what you know, what we stand on. Like, take that who cares mentality. And then the last thing I wrote was read it like it's the news. And I think, like, for me, like, you can see like a crazy story in the news. Like, I read one not too long ago where like, this entire church burned down. None of the Bibles were burned. And it's like, man, that's crazy. God is awesome. And I guess that story for me was like not easy to believe, but it's like you read something in the Bible, you're like, oh, that happened a long time ago. You know, people kind of read like it's folk or like it's a fairy tale, but it's like, no, read this like it's the news. Read it like this just happened, and apply that to your life, and just kind of understand that like 3 people went into a burning fire and survived without a scratch.
Mm-hmm.
That's how awesome God is. God can do that now still. And so it's kind of taking that mentality to just every day. And then the last thing I wrote down was just willingness. Just be willing to be used by God. Because, you know, you never know. I think it's something we have to talk about all the time. It's like the people in the Bible that, I mean, we talk about today, you know what I'm saying? Like, one of your favorite people is Stephen. You know what I'm saying? And he was stoned to death. And, still, asking for others to be forgiven as happening. And did he know that what he did, his actions would be as impactful to whoever billions of years later? Nobody knows. But, you know what I'm saying? So just kind of thinking that same mentality. Just kind of thinking, like, why can't I be the one that God uses to touch someone and impact a whole generation's life?
I thought, like, when I looked at it, it was kind of like his, but I thought about it like identity. Like a lot of people, they don't really have like I guess I'll say like a true identity. It's like kind of like what he was saying earlier. It's like a bunch of people. Like I see it like when I was at school. A bunch of people are followers, and no one that ever really is like, I don't know what's the word. Yeah. And usually people they don't know why they're doing sometimes, most times. They're just doing it just because they want to fit in. And I think like that's never really the best option. Because, like, I know me personally, I mean, just right now I'm just going to high school, but like, if you start getting, I mean, even now, but if you start, when they start getting later in life, if you just go around following people just because it's the fun, cool thing they do, you can end up in some really bad situations. You have to be like strong and have your own true identity. And be like, no, I don't think I want to go do that, or just like have your own, I guess, self-awareness and be able to say, and just be able to think for yourself and just not have your thinking dictated by someone else. Just be able to say like, nah, I think I can really do something else. Having like a firm moving to your own like personal identity.
I just wrote down something that I would say would be, I guess, like the routes of heaven and hell. So like there's the highway of hell, and then there's the staircase to heaven. And just to like think about the traffic flow and like why it is what it is. Like it's a highway of hell because a lot of people are going to go there. It's a staircase because there's select few that are going to be able to walk that case.
Narrow way.
It's hard work.
So that's good.
Climbing stairs and running down a tunnel to gravity.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try not to repeat anything like I said, but just kind of touch on some of it. I think like one is like knowing that there's absolutely nothing new. Like I mean, like you mentioned, like people read about in the Bible, you're reading like, oh man, they did this or they did that, and they read about people that made decisions and what the outcome was, whether it was good or bad, and it's like just learning from others before you, whether they be people in the Bible, whether they be people like that are your elders, older, they're trying to teach you and share with you, and I would say like focus on what matters, but know what matters. Because you can be focused, you be like, I'm focusing on what matters. Okay, well, what matters? And, it's like, it's so easy to get caught up in, like he talked about, heard a lot talk about like identity. It's so easy to get caught up into like, comparing yourself to this virtual world that exists out there, like this social media world. You compare yourself to them. And, versus like, just being the person that God made you to be, like being firm in that, being solid in that, and just being confident in that. Like, if God wanted me to be somebody else, then He would have made me somebody else, and just being, like I don't know if we talked about it last week during worship or maybe week before, but just like, just knowing like where your truth, where you get your truth from, because there are a lot of people that have agendas and all this stuff, but God hasn't changed. He isn't going to change, and it's like, it's very easy to get caught up in being led by your feelings, your emotions, and, everybody, I mean, I get it. Everybody wants to be like part of, I don't know, everybody wants to be wanted and part of this and part of that, but it's like when you make a decision to like really follow Christ, it's like it's like it's nothing new, but it's not. There are going to be things that I know for a fact that the closer you get to Him, they're going to be like fewer and fewer friends, because the reality is like most people, they're just not. It just doesn't appeal. You're trying to get people. If you're trying to get somebody that's like carnal or natural, whatever, and you're trying to get them spiritual things to appeal to them, it's impossible to do. And I don't know. I think I was talking to my uncle the other day, and we were talking about how he sent me a message talking about how like different churches that people you listen to, like how everybody preaches this message about like, how the gospel is this and that, and how going to church is like basically everything is like comfortable and easy and all that. And that's that's really like a false doctrine, because you know the Bible doesn't teach anything like that. It doesn't teach an easy path, like you said, you know, the narrow path and the broad. You know, it's narrow for a reason, and but at the same time, it's just I think at the end of the day, it's like everybody gets to make decisions. You know, and you can a lot of times we make decisions and we think like, well, it's not gonna be me or mine gonna turn out different, and it's like, man, you know, people change, but people change. The faces, the characters may change, but people still doing the same thing they've done since day one, you know. And Jalen said something made me think about Galatians 1:10. When Paul was talking about, he said, for do I now persuade men or God? He said, or do I seek to please men? For if I still please men, I will not be a bond servant of Christ. So for Paul, it was like his point, he said, like, who cares? That's like what Paul was saying. Who cares? I'm following Christ. You can say whatever you want to say or do whatever you want to do. It's like, I don't care, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's only one person that matters ultimately, you know, and so it just be about, you know, kind of like when Nita started talking about, like, you know, you see a lot of stuff going on in the world and people lose hope and they lose. Like I was talking to a guy earlier, he was talking about, man, you think about all this shooting stuff, what we gonna do about this and that, you know, and I think he was looking for me to give him a different response than what I did. You know what I'm saying? It was something I don't really know him, but I was doing a little job for him. And I was like, man, I said, you know, they try and treat people with like, you know, we got to, you know, and I believe mental health is a real thing, but I know for a fact that evil is a real thing. And I was telling him about like the story about Legion, and how I said that Legion, I said if that guy was around in 2019, they'd have him on all kind of medications. You know, I said, but Legion didn't have a schizophrenia problem or bipolar problem. He had a demon problem. You know, and I said, it's a lot of the same stuff today, you know. It's like people are controlled by the wrong spirit and they do things that evil spirits do, you know, regardless of whether you believe it or not. It's like, it's a real thing. And so I was just trying to tell him, like, man, that's why I don't, you know, I see people post about like he mentioned Trump, like, oh man, Trump doing this, what we gonna do about that? And then you jump on this entertainment thinks this or this, whatever thinks that. It's like, oh, I like what they saying. Like, I'm like, Paul, like he said, I don't care what anybody's saying, because at the end of the day, it's like God controls all. Like, he didn't, you know, God didn't look around one day and was like, oh, Trump is in the White House. It didn't surprise him. I mean, all that's by design, you know what I mean? So, and I think a lot of stuff is just, you can easily get caught up in like just focus just on the wrong thing, like all day, focusing on what this particular party, what their agenda is, or what that party's agenda is. And, oh, did you hear about this? They're not going to the White House. Or did you hear about that? This, you know, they doing this and they doing that. It's like, well, and I'll say this, when people present that to you, challenge them back and say, like, well, what do you think about, like, it's like just challenging people, like, is there where your hope is at? Is that like what you, and that's kind of like where I'm at, when I'm just like challenging people like that. Like, I don't care what any of them are doing. I'm like, I'm concerned about, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what, you know, the ultimate, like the bigger picture of it all. Like, what am I supposed to be doing in it? I'm not supposed to be walking around like, you know, with a Make America Great hat on, or like Trump is my God, or like whatever the other side is. Like, you know, it's like, just for the believer, like, man, just like your affiliation is Christ. That's your affiliation. It's not, you know, like, I'm all about a Republican, I'm all about Democrat, but anyway. I'm sorry.
I have a question. Since he kind of directed the question towards the younger generation, I'm gonna flip it back. If there was something, or what would you have wished, or what you would have liked, or you think would have been impactful if that you could have, like, your generation as a whole could have heard from the prior generation? Like, what things could have been told to your generation that would have been beneficial, or is it the same thing, really? Does that make sense? You look confused.
I think I know what you're saying. Like, what could our what could our parents have told us that would have made a difference?
Yeah.
Because I honestly believe between like some of that generation, but mostly our generation, I think the ball was dropped. A huge. I think we took.
Well, that's why I asked, because I mean, I feel like you didn't just drop it on your own. Like, what was maybe taught or what was localized to you was.
I don't know that it was our generation. I just know, I feel like
I think it
just
is.
because people, well, it depends on who's giving the information, I guess. I don't know. Because I feel like they told us what we
And
were
I guess it's
supposed to
not
know.
hard for you.
It's all about the information hadn't changed. It's the choices that the people made. You know what I'm saying? You know, I grow up in church, and I know what's supposed to be done and how the Lord. But ultimately, when I do whatever I do, whether I go to the left or the right, it's my choice, and I did it because that's what I wanted to do. And so it's like, I know Mama said, and Daddy said, you know, they gave you that same information. Now, whether or not the world around us at the time, it was different, yes, because stuff and technology and all that was, while it was more than what they had, it's less than what you guys have. So it was like, it's just a different degree, but I don't know, that just means, I feel like, with the individuals though, it's like, who's gonna listen?
Me personally, when I see it, I don't think it's anything that's happened like one generation and it just completely dropped off.
No, I know that.
Ever since the existence of humans, it's always been like, as much as people would like to think that everything used to be just fine and dandy and everything was great.
It looks
It's
different.
always
Yeah,
been,
it's
it looks different. It's always been,
Going down.
it's been a downhill slope for as long as ever since God recreated the earth with Noah's Ark.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I think what, I agree with what Anita's saying is we knew right from wrong, most of us.
You point at me.
My finger got twisted.
Oh.
But I think what happened is all of a sudden people started changing the laws to benefit their lifestyle or whatever, which
So the
gave
perception of
people
right and wrong got
Twisted.
is very twisted, and so that's what other people will use like as a excuse to not follow God's word because this is what the law said. But and yeah, so it's very very twisted, and that's their crutch, and that's what they lean on.
I think I could be wrong, but because I can't go back. I can listen to when I talk to my dad about certain things, and I know how they grew up, and I remember I remember doing a lesson one day, and I was talking about this probably been about 3 years ago, and how I took it back. I think 20 or 25 years. What society was like, what was accepted, what was and whatnot, and then I fast forwarded to now, and then I tried to project the next 20, 25 years, and what I would probably say that witnessed on my last 25 or maybe greater is that there's been more of a I think our generation has been more and more of an acceptance or tolerance. I think we grew up in an era where it was like, man, it's like, parents were maybe they perceived like more strict, more whatever, and it just like I think it started like when a lot of parents our age started letting kids like, oh, let's stop, let's get away from like let's do time out. Let's let's not I feel there was a shift where kids were given a lot of power, a lot of authority, based upon a few people that were, what I'm saying? And then it just like opened I look at how over our generation time, like music just completely, the bottom just fell out of it. You know what I'm saying? TV. It seemed like the generation where like a lot of things were just accepted. You ran into a lot of more parents like wanting to be more friends than parenting, and I know I've seen that for sure. So it's like, okay, well, it makes it really difficult for the next generation coming up because it's like that's because that's the model that's been set, and if you're not, and that's the thing, like, what I'm saying, kind of like what I said on earlier about like. When you design something, when you create something, it's like, man, this is how I want it to be. Like God did with marriage, He did with sex, He did with the family structure and all that stuff. And it's like, and we've just taken it and just like, oh, well, that's not. I don't, it's like, and we've basically like redefined.
It's like going in somebody's house
it's like, oh, this is all wrong. It's like, no, this is my house. This is how. I got the floor plans exactly how I want. I got the blueprint. It's like you come in, it's like, oh no, this is all wrong. No, I designed this house. And so it's like, who are we to tell God like, oh no, well, marriage is wrong. That's wrong. We can't, I know you said this, but that's not what it is. I know it's, you said that our body is this and that, but it's like, that was wrong. Everything basically is like, without verbalizing and saying, the actions show that the way people live is like, well, God, you're wrong. You got it all wrong. And like I said, that's why I think over the time, generations have, and I believe that as we get closer to the end of this world as we know it, I think that's how it's just designed. Like, and that's why I think like we're living in such a different time because, it's impossible to do, but what's this 20? Let's say for easy math, let's say, can you imagine what it's gonna be like in 2045?
Flying cars.
I'm not talking about that aspect of it. I'm not talking about that aspect of it. But it's just like like the Bible talks about like it's like the world's like it's like with labor pains, it starts like real like, oh, what was that? And then it just like full on labor pains, it's just like unbearable. And it's like that's how I think society's going to get, just like completely unbearable. You have quite a few comments over there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it says
Water.
the choices that we make not only have an impact on us, but the ones after us. And it says like in Deuteronomy 30:19, that if we look all throughout the scripture, we see that the decision that was made had a larger impact on others as well as those that committed the sin. It says, I wish we could let this generation know that the enemy is real. I'm sorry. I wish we could let this generation know that the enemy is real. He wants to kill, steal, and destroy by any means possible. It may look good at the moment, but always count the cost and think about the consequences, not from your fleshly perspective, but from the spiritual.
That one right there is probably like, I think, I don't want to say underestimated, but it's like he's saying, because you can, there's a real enemy, man, and he's not like, he doesn't have a shirt that says enemy on it. He doesn't come at you like that. It's like he comes in a whole nother way, and It's real. It's real crafty. Any other comments?
I think the way we read that last question back at us, I think it also is going to, it's part of question number 5. So if we go into more detail when we get down to that one, because it was,
Yeah.
to me, that's kind of going hand in hand with that question about.
Let's turn to Deuteronomy chapter 1. Chapter 1. Yeah, chapter 1, verse 2 said, "It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea." I'm going to go ahead and read verse 3. It says, "Now it came to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all the Lord had given him as commandments to them, after he had killed Sihon, king of Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and king of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaroth and Edrei." So question number 2 says, in Deuteronomy 1 and 2 mentions that it should have taken the Israelites 11 days to arrive at the promised land after receiving the 10 commandments in Horeb. Instead, 11 days turned into 14,600 days. And the question says, it's why and what is the lesson for the new generation to learn here?
I wrote that the 11-day journey to the promised land turned into 40 years of wandering because of their sin. They murmured and complained about the conditions. They kept looking back to what was Egypt. They failed to trust God after all the miraculous things that He had done for them. And the lesson, I guess, to learn is that when we fail to trust God's promises to us, and we don't move ahead toward that future, the plan that He has laid out for us, then we will be destined to roam aimlessly about, kind of in our own wilderness, just within reach of that promise, because it's not like it's far. It's just, that it was their own self's, I guess, fault, so to speak. Why it took longer than it did. So,
Good.
And my answer was disobedience and unbelief. But they were convinced that they could not defeat the current inhabitants of the land that God promised them. And because of that, that unbelieving generation had to die off. Interesting. But I agree with you. And like Nita said, we see that promise. It's within arm's reach, but we are the reason we can't get to it. We can't church it.
We can't what?
Church it.
Oh, touch it.
flesh.
Flesh. Get in the old way.
Who is it?
Debo.
So yeah, I figured who these
I think y'all answered the why pretty well.
Okay.
What is the lesson for the new generation right here? Don't travel with the Israelite. Nah. What the Israelite? Nah.
Man, you don't know where you going.
What I think the lesson kind of is like, I know kind of lately we've been talking about like whenever you pray or something and you like people equate not getting the answer they want to God not answering or not listening. But I think what this kind of, at least the lesson that I kind of got from it is just like, you know, God has said yes to what it is you asked for, and He's told you what you've got to do next, but you're not following the instructions, so you're not able to, like you guys have alluded to, that thing that He's promised you is right there, but because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're not being obedient, you're not following the steps He told you to follow, you're not able to attain it, and you grow frustrated. You're like, man, why can't I have it? Like, it's right there, right there. It's like you're the reason why. So it's kind of like if we can get out of our own way, then we can get the things that God's promised us.
That's kind of like if I have a gift for you, and I said, Jalen, this is for you, and you just look at it, but it's yours. I'm not gonna bring it to you, but you need to get up and come and get it. So it's like you need to put some action, some effort, whatever, into what I'm giving you. It's like you don't even want your gift. You just wander. You're like you're gonna walk by. Boy, sure look nice. I don't know. It might be too expensive for me. Whatever. They talk themselves out of it, or almost. But yeah, we have to actually reach and go get whatever the blessing is. Reach up and grab it.
In Jesus' comment says, the biggest difference from then to now is grace, and thank God for it. They did not trust and believe what God had already promised them. We have a tendency to want to jump ahead of God if He doesn't move at the pace we want or the time frame we give Him. That's why it's important for us to wait. Isaiah 41. But those who wait for the Lord will find new strength, and they will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I'm God.
I think it's funny, like how if you think like, I mean, it could be like the Israelites, it could be like in your own, just your individual, you know what I'm saying, individual life. But like then, for example, like you have a group of people like wandering around, and after like that's a long time. Who do you think it would be? Somebody would be like, look, I got something I want to say. We need to do something different because
we passed this tree
I put it in
years.
I put it in like it's like you take a 30-minute drive. So like from here to Austin, I did the math. That's like you're taking 27 minutes for a 30-minute, 27 hours. Sorry, 27 days for a 30-minute drive.
that's ridiculous.
So you're gonna be to Austin soon, guys.
But if you're looking at the GPS and you got a thing sitting upside down or backwards, you're not gonna ever, like when it recalculates when we first got in my car and we get it and turn it on, the thing would say north and we'd be definitely headed south. So it's like somebody needs to recalibrate the GPS or something because
That's this way. I know it is.
you're going
I saw that
wrong.
marker for it.
Yeah. I said like learning is just like, above everything else, like just because there's so many, it's a lot of voices out there, you know what I'm saying, that has like, well, you should be doing this, well, you should be going that way, you should be doing this, you should be doing, but just having the like, you know what, I'm just gonna stop for a minute and like, where does God want me to go? And when He tells you like, don't, not being like, well, this don't make no sense. Telling me to go over that. Like, you know what I'm saying? But just having yes, being obedient, but just like being, I guess, trusting Him above everything else. You know what I mean? Because I think sometimes it may be like, and I know we use it, but like with Abraham, when God told him, He was like, He just told him to go. He didn't even give him like a end destination. He just said go. And Abraham was like, he went, And I think sometimes it goes, if we're trying to do it like in the like the Israelites are trying to do it like on our own understanding and all this stuff, and whatever, then it's not gonna make sense, or it's just kind of whatever. We're just gonna wander around. But like she said, the whole time it's like, man, it was like doing all this, and it's been right there the whole time.
I'd also say, in their defense, though, knowing that there was like millions of them, right? If there was one that said, you know what, we're going the wrong way, and I turn around and go back that way, or
They won't listen.
you know what I'm saying? How difficult is it to change the masses when you're going upstream?
I get that by myself.
Me and my family, we going to go.
You're not about to walk around for 40 years.
Can you imagine walking around?
But they didn't have no map.
You were alive
But
for all those 40 years, and you walked around in however many circles, and you finally got to the promised land, and
You
you're
know
like,
how pissed that.
that was Joshua and Caleb. They were the only two that.
Yeah, you know how checked they had to be?
Well, I don't.
Like, really?
we
Do
want
y'all
this
ask
far.
We
why
were
they
right
say,
down the
come on,
road 27 years ago.
who were they following? But that's just,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that was the thing, though. The reason why they didn't get to just go was because the Lord made sure they died out there, so that all that bad stuff didn't get to go into the promised land. Joshua and Caleb probably like, it's right there, but the Lord, I don't know, orchestrated in such a way that they wandered.
By themselves.
I don't know. They kept missing the turn at the fork in the road, and they didn't veer to the right.
Let's we can do number 3 and close tonight. Let's turn to chapter 8, Deuteronomy chapter 8, read verses 1 through 5 and then 15 through 18. It says, every commandment which I command you today, you must be careful to observe, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land of which the Lord swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. You should know in your heart that as a man chastens his son, so the Lord chastens you. You jump down to verse 15. Says, who led you through that great and terrible wilderness, in which were fiery serpents and scorpions, and thirsty land where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you, and that he might test you, to do you good in the end. And then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. And so the question says, what lessons did the new generation of Israel learn from their parents and or from God over the course of 40 years wandering in the desert?
The lesson to be learned is how important it is to follow the commandments. And as a reminder, to remember what the ancestors went through. And also it reminds them of all that was provided for them during this time: food, water, clothing, and protection. So just remember the ancestors.
That's what's on your paper.
It just, yeah.
Did you look on her paper?
No, she might look on mine.
Okay.
I feel like that's where the saying, or parents be like, "Don't be like me, be better than me." I feel like that might have been adopted around this time.
Yeah.
I agree with what Ms. T said. The only other thing I was kind of thinking is just like instilling a gratitude and just appreciation that like even into what them was the worst, you know what I'm saying, going through being in the middle of nowhere, God still always provided for them. So just knowing that no matter how low or how down and out you may think you are, God still has his hand up.
I think the two words that I just pull out of that, so I don't repeat the same thing, is just to always remember. And it was like whatever it was that God did and brought them through all that time up to where they were now, that remember all of that, not to forget any of it. And as these years go along, I think that's where our failure to, thrive kind of spiritually over the years is because we always remember God, and I'll just leave it at that. Always remember God. It's like where we forgot him, or not forgot, but more so deliberately chose to disinclude him in, because I was looking it up and we kind of whispered amongst ourselves some things back in 1963, Miss Madeline Murray O'Hare in her atheist quest to have the Bible and government and prayer and separation of school, church and state or whatever. And
See what?
listen, she died in 95.
But
But yeah, got prayer taken out of school,
Yeah.
and from there, it was like we were little, so it wasn't our fault. So we can't say that. But like I say, you're raised to do the right thing, but as society would have it, all it takes is one, and then let me get some more followers. And I feel like at that point, it was just the enemy's move to do something a little bit more. He got a little bit more bold, it's like he's like, okay, well, let me amp up the situation or whatever, and poke my head in, and okay, so we get court and all this stuff and prayers taken out of school, and you can just follow the the timeline, and like I say, we're already kind of. And so, the slide just keeps getting a little slipperier. Like you said, the lyrics to music way back when, they would say some stuff, but maybe a hell or, a damn was probably the strongest thing in a song that if they said something bad on TV, it was like, whoop, whoop, and they would bleep, 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 But as the years go by, I mean, you can't even watch commercial, and, it just... There's everything goes and anything goes, and like you say, the wrong is right and the right is wrong, and people allow, like you say, it wasn't a big thing, but it's just one little thing at a time. I'm just planting the little seed. They'll let we can get away with that, so that nobody said anything. So let me add another one, and each year or generation, whatever, more and more is accepted, and less is being spoken up against.
And what happens with that though, because what happens is that
They get more bold.
Well, you get more bold, but think about it. If you're like, let's say you were born 5 years ago, say whatever. Everything you see now is like, it's the normal. That's the norm.
Yeah.
So the I hate to use the word the standard, but for lack of better term, it's been like just it's down and it feels like, oh, this is normal to do this. It's normal. This is all normal. And it's like, if you start believing that wrong is normal, or like that's just the everyday thing, man, it's like an uphill, because now you're really, and God can do anything, but man, and I think that's too why, and I know we'll get into it on the next few questions next week, but like as parents, man, that message has to be instilled like early and often, even more so today, because it's like, because you got it's little kids walking around with these devices right here, and they're just like, you know, because that's the norm. You know, and that's just what we do because that's the norm, and you know, it's just kind of it's sad, but it's like reality, and it's just like I was talking to somebody the other day. They were talking about like, man, I'm like, they were basically talking about like, you know, in this generation, like, I'm glad I ain't gotta have no. I can't remember if it was somebody old saying they glad they don't have that their kids is all grown. I think that's what
Not
it
to
was.
bring
Like,
up any
man,
kids.
I'm like, oh, I'm got, you know, like, well, people still have. I remember when we like when Greg, but I remember even then society was, you know, we was kind of starting to, and I remember like then it's like, man, it's kind of crazy, but I'm like, well, and even then I was not. I was not in this book, but I was like, I just wasn't like gonna let society dictate like me, like I'm not gonna have a kid because I'm scared of how the world is gonna be and this and that, you know. And that's what I was telling the guy today, like, you know, what I'm saying, man, God didn't intend for us to walk around like, you know, like the ground is like eggshells, and we just like, oh, we just scared, we this and we scared. It's like, no, God intended for the believer to walk around like Peter did, like Paul did, like Stephen did, like just being bold about it. But you know, that only comes by, you know, just being filled with the Spirit. You can say you go out there and being bold, but man, if you go out there on your own strength, you'll get ate up, you know. But
A few more comments on Negro. Still going with the question 3, he said, the amazing thing is that even in their disobedience, God still took care of them, watched over them, protected them, and gave them provision. I believe it's so the younger generation could see that he was still a provider and he was still a protector and loved them. And he said, grace was and who he is even at that time. He changes not the same yesterday, today, and forever. It also gives them the opportunity to see if they would have trusted God and not others, it could have made it a better journey or even a short.
Amen. Good point.
So next time, trust your gut. That's 80 years.
8 days.
Well, that'll conclude our study for tonight. Next week we'll pick up with a question number 4.